My inheritance has cost me. The car and gadgets are nice. And I've almost gotten used to the smell in the cave. It's the criminals. Since my father died, they've focused their attention on me.
Hey man, somebody killed this lady.
And the people around me. My father's enemies have gotten more twisted with age, more violent and suicidal.
Crashing this plane with no survivors.
Because they know their inevitable end is near. They've seen Batman die. They've seen each other die.
I can't believe they killed him. Yeah, man, things are getting really bad out here.
The Riddler.
This puzzle is far more than any mere game.
Dr. Death.
You and I go way back, Batman.
Two-Face.
I still believe in Harvey Dent.
All gone. Like the life I hoped for beyond this mask. Everything I have, everything I am, is because of him. I'm the Batman's daughter. I am the Huntress. And tonight, I'm hunting the man who destroyed my life.
Hello and welcome to the Huntress Podcast. This is episode 39. 39 forever. In this one, we're going to talk about a Helena Wayne adventure. I'm Ashford, and along with me is Laurel. Hello, Laurel.
Hello, Ashford.
And we also have Diane with us. How are you doing today, Diane?
I'm doing great. How are you doing, Ashford?
I'm doing well. Thank you for asking. And I'm doing even better. I have it in my hands. Wow, this is some heavy league stuff. Justice League of America, number 159. I'm looking at this cover. Diane, what do you think about this one?
Well, the first thing that we notice is that all of the heroes are on the ground, and we've got like what appears to be villains, time-displaced villains, on the, basically conquering them is what I'm getting here. So we've got Jonah Hex there, and at least one World War I pilot there, a pirate, a lady that looks like a pirate, and we've got what appears to be, I want to say a caveman, but yeah, so we've got like 5 people standing over the Justice League and Just Society, and of course we've got Huntress on the ground there, so it looks like the JSA and JLA were defeated in this issue.
Wow. Laura, what do you think about this one?
I like it. It's our traditional heroes are all on the ground. You know how that goes in those kind of things. Looking at the characters standing over them, it's quite the motley crew, which, was interesting. They give the names of them on the cover, which is nice. And they also do it in the actual issue, which I always appreciate. But they're very colorful and very, the variety of outfits these people have is really interesting. So it really works with the superhero outfits. It makes for a really interesting dynamic between the two.
Yeah, this is a pretty cool cover done by penciler Rich F. Buckler and inker Dick Giordano. It's colorful. We see Huntress on the cover, so that's interesting. You pick up this Justice League of America book, and once you see this Huntress character, you're like, oh, this is going to be this Earth 2 tie-in. The annual JLA-JSA team-up leads to the downfall of both at the hands of 5 heroes from yesterday. And that's something that I would miss if annually, once a year, they're going to do this Earth 1, Earth 2 team-up. I think that's what the game is missing. I'm pretty sure, Diane, you agree with that.
Well, we'll say that again.
Do you agree with, hey, wouldn't it be cool if DC, if we always had this tradition that's continuing on with Earth 1, Earth 2 annual team-ups?
Oh, yeah, definitely. At least the events were contained to once a year and not like every 2 months.
Yeah. And I just wish we had an Earth 2 at all to team up with. So hopefully that's coming.
I would love to.
Yeah, so this is the comic Justice League of America. This is number 159. It has a cover date October 1978. However, according to Mike's Amazing World of Comics, it was actually on sale July 6, 1978. It had a cover price of 50 cents. How is that even possible? I can't wrap my head around that. Like, I get inflation and it was a different time, but just how did a company function? It has a page count of 40. We have legendary editor Julia Schwartz. The title is Crisis from Yesterday. And that 40 page count is including the ads. We have writer Jerry Conway. Right now, Diane, is this the first time we've seen another writer with Helena Wayne's Huntress other than who we've been seeing so far?
She's had several writers, especially for Justice League and Justice Society. So Paul Levitz is not involved in the Justice League title in any capacity. So she's going to end up in the hands of Jerry Conway, Roy Thomas, during the Justice League crossovers, and then she'll eventually end up with Roy Thomas much later on when he starts Infinity Inc. So, yeah, she tends to fall under different writers when she appears in a crossover, whether that be a Batman crossover or a Justice League crossover. Basically, any crossover involving Earth 1 is going to be handled by a different writer other than her usual writer, which in this time frame is Paul Levitz.
Yeah, usually I'm used to either Roy Thomas or Paul Levitz handling Helena Wayne. So it's going to be interesting to see someone else, when that character gets in another person's hands, I always pay attention to that. We have penciler Dick Dillon, inker Frank McLaughlin. We have on letters Ben Oda, colorist Carl Gafford. And this was reprinted in Crisis on Multiple Earths, Volume 5, trade paperback back in 2010. It was not on the DC Universe app. We're recording this September 13th. Yesterday, Jim Lee, he released a tweet saying, some news is coming about the DC app. So I wonder if that news is this on here? There's been some Action Comics, there's been some Action Comics and some Adventures of Superman where it would be 8 issues of it not on there. So I don't know if they're upping the volume of what's on this app or not. So I'm going to stop rambling. Well, actually, we did get some feedback, and we do appreciate folks tweeting and retweeting the show and sharing it on the social media. But I was going to read when we did episode 38, we did get someone writing something on the website, thehuntress.podcast.com. It's Tim Price. That was a good wrap up for Huntress' first solo story. We learned more about her character, and it sets the tone for future stories. And you all covered it amply. My only addition is one of my silly observations. Helena's shadow, when in costume, looks more like Batman's shadow. There's no silhouette for her hair. And man, the art includes a shadow a lot. It was almost a game. Take a drink every time Batman's shadow appears in the comic. Thanks, Hunt Trio. See you next time. So did you guys notice any shadow games going on in that last issue?
Yeah, it's a recurring theme with Helena Wayne. That's one way that Paul Levitz and Joe Staton in particular tended to emphasize that, although this woman is the Huntress, she's still the daughter of Batman. And so whenever her shadow is shown, it's always in the form of a bat silhouette. And you're going to see that a lot during her solo stories in particular.
Yeah, I definitely noticed it. It was something that popped up. But, over time, you just sort of take it as part of the character. It's part of her depiction, and I just sort of roll with it.
I think the shadow thing, it's a Tim Price thing because he talks about that as far as in comics, when the shadow is a silhouette of the character, he's saying that only the audience can see that, but within the comic they can't. And he would like for Grant Morrison to do some story about this shadow universe that actually exists. So that's why Yeah, that's why he pointed that out, because like he has a thing about that.
Yeah, that's awesome.
But yeah, I love when Huntress pops up and we see that shadow. So, Diane, could you give us the summary to Justice League of America number 159?
Justice League of America 159 opens to the scene of an unusual party. At Earth 1's Club 22 are the members of Earth 1's Justice League and Earth 2's Justice Society, dining together for the first time to enjoy each other's company rather than spend a dangerous, day combating dangerous multiversal crises. Just as they're starting to relax, an explosion at Club 22 takes place, knocking half of the Justice League and Justice Society heroes unconscious. In the year 3786 AD, in the region outside of time and space, a Lord of Time devises his most sinister plan against the Justice League and Justice Society. With his brain-powered time machine, the Lord of Time has plucked 5 unsuspecting victims from Earth's history to attack the Justice Society and the Justice League at a specific moment in time, the time they meet at Club 22 for relaxing get-together. The 5 unsuspecting victims: John the Viking Prince, Jonah Hex, Rittmeister Hans von Hammer, Miss Liberty, and the Black Pirate. 5 figures of history. Back in the year 1978, the infamous 5 figures of history stand over the debris of the newly destroyed Club 22. Neither one has any clue what the heck just happened to them. Why are they even there? Why were they even made to attack an unsuspecting group of people with no personal connection to them? The quintet depart together to think about what just happened and what they need to do to return to the rightful places in history. At the Club 22, some of the Justice Society and Justice League heroes begin to regain consciousness. The Earth 2 Huntress recalls seeing a World War I triplane at the moment of attack and relays this information to the Earth 1 Superman. As the heroes debate about how to best save their friends, the Earth 1 Hawkman suggests going after their attackers for answers. The conscious Justice League and Justice Society heroes depart in the Earth 1 Wonder Woman's invisible plane piloted by her Earth 2 counterpart. Following the chronal energy left behind by the 5 figures of history, the heroes arrive at the location of their attackers, only to be attacked once again by them and be effortlessly and consciously put unconscious once again. The heroes realize they're not dealing with any ordinary foes and that they are much more powerful than they appear. Having completed the first phase of their plan, the Lord of Time brings the 5 figures of history back to his region outside of time and space and prepares to execute the next phase of his plan. Unbeknownst to his unsuspecting, loyal, brain-powered time machine, the Lord of Time intends to lure the Justice League and Justice Society to his region, stronger and better than before, in order to destroy him. It turns out the Eternity Brain will activate its program to stop time, a program the Lord of Time himself cannot cancel. Back in the year 1978, the Justice League and Justice Society heroes regain consciousness once again at Valley Forge, Pennsylvania, and prepare to once again track their attackers. This concludes Justice League of America 159.
And we're going to take a short break, and when we come back, we will talk about this monumental event.
Hey there, my name's Nathaniel, and I'm here to tell you about an exciting new podcast.
What are you doing?
Oh, hey Liz, I'm just recording the podcast promo.
You're recording the promo for the Punch Like a Girl podcast?
Yeah.
You.
Yeah, I'm one of the hosts. I have more podcast experience. What?
You're going to sit there and mansplain to people about a podcast focusing on graphic novels and trade collections with female protagonists?
Oh.
Yeah.
Can I at least tell them how it's available on iTunes and Stitcher and at punchlikeagirlpod.wordpress.com?
No.
Shoot. Alright, well hang on, I'll delete this. We'll try again.
That's not delete, that's the button for publish.
Welcome back to the Huntress Podcast. We are discussing Justice League of America 159 from 1978. And we've got, a couple of things with the Huntress in here. We have, let's start at the beginning Do we want to do like overall impression of the book as a whole? Let's start there, and then we'll zero in on the Huntress. Ashford, do you want to start us off? What did you like or not like about this issue? Did you like it?
The thing that I liked about this issue was that it didn't read modern, but it read pretty fast, because when you're reading books from this era, it takes a while to get through. And I didn't feel like it was shortchanged or anything, but I felt like it flowed. I felt like I cared about the characters. I felt like even characters I didn't know, the way that they talked or how they were presented, I got the gist of them, like enough to get me through the story. So as I was reading this, and it's kind of a convoluted story, I never felt confused. So yes, I did like it. What about you, Diane?
You know me, I'm a sucker for time travel stories. You know, we both do the Doctor Who podcast together, so time travel shenanigans, you know, is very much up our alley. But I think the one thing that really stood out about this comic is that it kind of reminded me a bit of the Doctor Who episode from the Patrick Troughton era, the War Games, where people in different points of history, they get pulled out of their timeline and they end up on a planet. That's kind of what that reminded me of, you know, when the 5 figures of history get taken out of their respective timelines and then they end up in a totally new place. You know, it kind of reminded me of that episode where the heroes, you know, not just the Doctor and his companions, but also the people from World War One, people from the Civil War, they all ended up on a completely different planet, abducted from their timelines as part of an experiment by, I think it was the warlords. So it kind of reminded me a lot of that episode, except that instead of a warlord, you know, time displacing, you know, people in history, he's basically, you know, a Lord of Time. I think they explicitly avoid using the word Time Lord here. The Lord of Time, he pulls these 5 people from very different points in history to defeat the Justice League, with the goal of making them stronger because he wants to defeat his own time machine. I thought that was quite interesting.
Diane, I'm glad that you mentioned that, because I was like, I'll save that to myself. But I was thinking the same thing. And, you know, like I told you at the very end, where they're pumping up the next issue, and it says, these 8 heroes journey through times to avenge their defeat, and the Time Lord's plan to keep time. So I'm thinking, like, perhaps, and with this villain communicating to the computer, I'm thinking, like, were there any Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy vibes going on in this? So yeah, this is pretty interesting.
I have to agree with Ashford about what you said, that flowing really well, it reads really well, and I understood the characters very well. I said earlier that it was funny to me, off mic, I said there's so many of them are talking about their wives, or they've got girlfriends, or it's just funny. I was like, man, this is like a soap opera going on here. We got all kinds of good stuff, but it made the characters very relatable, which for a comic that I'm not that familiar with, that worked out really well. It made me, you know, interested in what's going on. Let's drill down a little bit on the Huntress. We've got a scene at the beginning when all the Earth 1, Earth 2 characters are mingling, and they're talking over their little party here. And Batman sees the Huntress and starts thinking to himself that he's envious of his Earth 2 counterpart, and he's trying to decide in his own mind why. Was it because he retired, or is it because he has a daughter? And he decides that it's because he wanted a daughter. How interesting was that? Diane, what did you think of his thing and the whole, how she calls him uncle and how that goes?
I would like to start by saying the first thing that really stood out to me about that panel sequence is the fact that this happened during the time when Bruce Wayne was actually dating Silver St. Cloud, and so there's a reference to Silver in this particular story. And I thought the thing that really popped out to me is that, okay, so the Earth 1 Bruce Wayne is absolutely aware of the fact that Helena Wayne, the Huntress, is the daughter of Batman and Catwoman on Earth 2. So I found myself wondering if he was thinking of having a daughter with Silver St. Cloud, who was his girlfriend at the time, and naming that girl Helena, you know. So I thought it was interesting that instead of, it's not Catwoman that he thinks of wanting to have a daughter with, but Silver St. Cloud. So that was the first thing that popped out to me. And the second thing about, that panel sequence is that, I thought it was interesting that Bruce Wayne, or rather Helena Wayne, made Bruce Wayne question, what he's doing with his life. Because, if his Earth 2 counterpart, got married and moved on from his need of Batman, what's he doing with his life? Does he plan on being Batman forever? And then he starts to, then he kind of like stops himself from thinking, it's like, hold on, I like being Batman. And I don't regret having Dick Grayson as my ward, but let's face it, I love what I do, but I kind of want a daughter myself, so I would love to have this young lady as my daughter, And of course, Helena notices that he's kind of staring at her, and he's like, you got something to say? He's like, I know nothing, I'm just thinking of, things that could have been, sort of thing. So I thought it was a nice, scene. It was a nice panel sequence where Bruce Wayne kind of sort of questioned what he was doing with his life and how he wants, his future to progress.
Ashford, what about you?
I say this all the time, but if I was following Justice League of America, and these two issues, like I mentioned before, they're not on the DC app. I went and tracked them down. If I was like, at the time, I'm living in the Bronze Age, and I'm not talking about Greek mythology, I'm talking about like in the DC universe, and I'm living in the Bronze Age, and I'm following Justice League, and the way that Huntress is presented in this, I would go, oh yeah, who is that character? I want to know more about her, because I felt like she stood out. She was a leading lady amongst like heavy hitters. So again, we have another writer writing for her, and I don't know if there's a mandate like, hey, make this character cool because we want to do more with her. But yeah, I think that she's awesome.
What'd you think about the Batman part?
Oh yeah, that was very interesting. I think especially too, like the whole thing of like, wait a minute, on the other Earth, like my character settled down, got married, had a kid and all this, and then that juxtaposition and opposing the two forces, like on this Earth, this Batman does that. So I thought it was kind of interesting. And also, I thought this Batman seemed kind of recognizable to modern day Batman. I know he gets more Bat God, but I don't know. Like, we're talking about the writing moving in a modern way. I felt like the art as well just really highlight these characters. But yeah, the Batman part, I thought that was pretty cool. And like Diane said, when Huntress was like, penny for your thoughts. Mm-hmm. Like, oh, no, I'm just kind of daydreaming. But yeah, cool stuff. And I love the idea of the whole thing. Like, every Thanksgiving, we get together. I love that.
I have to definitely agree with you. This Batman's a lot more relatable because he's not pushing people away. He's like, no, I liked having Dick as my ward. It would have been nice to have a daughter. I can't picture the current Batman saying those things.
Especially that Batman from like 1999 to 2006. Mm-hmm. It's like they've tried to rough out those edges since then. But yeah, remember, he's Bat jerk.
Yeah, well, I don't think he regrets Damian exactly, but, it wasn't something he was looking for. I guess that's how I would look at it. So the next thing we've got with Huntress, she does make the observation about the plane, which is nice that she's participating in our little group here because, like you said, there's heavy hitters. But we've got, I think it's 8 characters altogether that take off after our bad guys, quote-unquote bad guys. They're really good guys that have been sort of co-opted into this. She's on the plane and says something about she never imagined that something from the past was going to be popping up like this. Let's see. I glimpsed a World War I triplane, but I never imagined it might actually come from the past. And Ralph Dibny says, that's because you're new at the superhero game, Helena. And then he says something along the lines of menaces are going to be his old hat to the pros, but she'll get into the swing of things soon enough. And she does not take that well and basically lets him know that he's being very patronizing without being completely ugly about it, I guess. But yeah, was he really trying to patronize her, or was she sensitive, or what? Diane, what's your analysis of that?
Well, Ralph Dibny was definitely mansplaining the superhero gig to her, and by this time frame in Helena's own timeline, she's already been a Huntress for about 2 years now, or at least close to 2 years. So she's not entirely new to the superhero gang. So yeah, the fact that Ralph Dibny's like, oh yeah, it's because you're young and you've got lots to learn, and she's like, why, thank you, Ralph. Your confidence in me is so inspiring. So she's basically snarking at him, kind of letting him know, yeah, I don't need you to mansplain superhero lifestyles to me. I've already been doing this for 2 years. And Ralph was like, hey, I was just trying to be nice to you. So I think that in Ralph's case, he's not actually aware of the fact that he's actually being patronizing. In his mind, he thinks he's, being friendly to her. He's kind of, being a mentor. I guess he's seeing himself in a mentor position. And Helena's like, what you doing? I'm not new. I may be young, but I'm not entirely new to this, And so she does not take that well. So I didn't think Helena's being sensitive. It's just she's being patronized. And of course, no one wants to be patronized. So yeah, he's basically mansplaining superhero lives to her. He's basically mansplaining being a superhero to a woman who's already a superhero. So yeah, I don't think Helena is wrong to be annoyed by that.
Ashford?
The art in this sequence is great. I kind of chalk this up as Huntress just being tough, and also hey, I was just thinking out loud, so I didn't really need you to make a comment, and even if, oh yeah, we see this stuff all the time. Even if I saw time travel stuff all the time, I'm still going to be in awe of it because I want to be like John Lennon in the song, because the sky's blue, it blows my mind. So I want that to always blow my mind. I don't ever want to be jaded to that. And I can see Ralph going oh man, I was just trying to be nice, but it's just kind of I was just kind of thinking out loud hey, this time travel thing, that's pretty an awesome thing. And I mean awesome in the true sense of the word. And then there's just, I don't know, sometimes you kind of grow up where you have to have thick skin. When you're around these people, it's just a bunch of banter talk and craziness. So it's tit for tat. I can definitely see Helena Bertinelli doing this too. When she was kind of giving Tim some you-know-what, because he was so kind of wonder bread. She was trying to toughen him up. So, and it's also Huntress kind of setting the tone for, hey, I'm not ditzy. So, with this initial conversation, now you know where I stand. Mm-hmm. So, even if you didn't mean to do that, in the future, don't do it, because I just set the tone.
One thing about the art here, you were saying, I do think it's lovely. The facial expressions really work throughout this whole thing. Really nice art here. The way that her mask is with the really big open eye, and the way the ear, I guess, are they supposed to be ears? What exactly are the things that are sticking up? I was curious, is that the way she's been looking, or is this unusual? Am I just imagining that?
That's just how Dick Dillon draws her mask, I think Zinda Blake in Gail Simone's Birds of Prey run, had a perfect description for that mask, which was the Horned Devil mask, and so that's basically how it's drawn there. But no, that's not typically how Joe Staton draws the mask, and later Jerry Ordway. That's just the way that Dick Dillon chooses to depict it.
Well, it's nice.
It seems
go ahead, Ashford. I'm sorry.
It seems like it's a throwback to Batwoman in the past,
mm-hmm.
right? Or is that a stretch?
No, I see that. I see what you're saying. I haven't read a whole lot with her, but it was in that 75th anniversary hardcover that they did. They had her in it, so that's where I've seen her at any rate. And that would look similar. Okay, so the next thing we've got, Huntress is in the invisible jet that our heroes that can't fly are being guided along this path they're trying to find. What are they doing? The chronal energy path that they're following to try to catch up. And when they do catch up with these time-displaced heroes that are now villains, or however you want to word that, it's very confusing. They're sort of being influenced, I guess, by this Time Lord character to attack. I think if I understand this correctly. And they also are given some sort of a extra power. There's some more zap in their weapons and their power levels, if I understood this correctly, that makes it much easier for them to defeat. I mean, this is a joint effort of these two teams from Earth 1 and Earth 2, and they're very easily defeated. But at least Helena is out on the wing of this plane almost immediately. She smushes Ralph in the face, which is hysterical. As she's getting out, she uses his face to help get out of the plane. But anyway, she hounds out on the wing, and she says, my belt buckle batarang can handle creeps twice the size of Blondie here. And she throws it, and he, of course, swings some sort of a hammer and deflects it. And she's like, then again, my question is, was it one of those things where she's attacking that it looks like she's gotten in over her head, or is this a position where you have to take on all comers or you're not part of the JSA, well, the JLA, that's what these teams do, therefore go for it? What's your opinion on that, Diane?
I think that she was just reacting to the situation. She knows that, there's trouble, and she knows that, if the thing is that the one thing that they do is that as soon as they catch up to their to the 5-time displaced figures of history, they're immediately attacked by John the Viking and the Black Pirate. So she's actually just reacting to the situation. So she's defending right away. So they're being attacked. She's on the defense. The only thing is that she underestimated, the actual threat. She figured, oh, I've got a Viking boy. No problem. And then she realizes, oh, no, he's actually more powerful than I anticipated. So yeah, I would say she more underestimated the actual threat that they were dealing with. She just reacted to the situation, but, also underestimated, what weapons or what powers those figures can actually have. She just looked at John the Viking and figured, oh, he's just a Viking. I can take you on. No problem. Oops, no. Turns out there's more to you than I expected. And so that ends up happening to the other heroes as well. They attack, they attack the other figures of history, and the same thing happens to them. They underestimate the threat of those characters. They underestimate, how much power they actually have and what weapons they've got to their advantage. So all of them really, not just Helena, are underestimating their actual threat.
I thought it was just a good action sequence. Again, when I was reading this last night, I was thinking, all right, I'm going to go do something later. So I was like, I'll read this too. I feel like it's a good stopping point. And I never felt like stopping. So just kind of the sequential art sequence of this, it was great. And I like how she was saying, be careful, Flash. This guy's way more powerful than you think. So I thought it was cool stuff.
I thought it was interesting she did not panic being out on the wing of the plane when the Viking guy grabs her by the shoulder and sort of swings her up off her feet. And she's not panicked at all. She's like, no, ready to give information to the other heroes. Like she's still in the game here. That did not panic her that, oh my God, I'm going to fall out of this plane. That was interesting. And there is a little cheesecake here, which I find funny now that we're really looking at these panels. When she jumps out of the plane, her cape flying up lets us have one of those wonderful butt sticking out shots that you get in comics. But it works. The way this flows, you can tell the action, where everybody is, how it's supposed to work. That part I really appreciated. And I like that she doesn't panic. That she's like, no, this is what we do, and I'm going for it. I thought that's what you have to do when you're around all these super powered people all the time. I think you start to get used to being around super powered people, so it's not as intimidating. I'm glad to see that here. I think that's about it. It's not got a whole lot of Huntress in it. It's really more a team effort. I mean, it's a team book, so that makes sense. I enjoyed it very much. Diane, any last thoughts?
I really felt that this was more set up for part 2 of the story, which happens in 160. But I do like what the actual issue does, set up. We've got, a time-traveling villain that they call a Lord of Time. And of course, my Doctor Who nerd self is thinking, oh yeah, Time Lords definitely exist in the DC universe under a different name. I like the fact that, we've got, 5 antagonists who are actually time-displaced heroes of that era. Although I'm not sure that Rittmeister Hans von Hammer is actually a hero. You know, if he was fighting on the side of the Germans, you know, I think he's based on the Red Baron.
Well, he's Enemy name. Ace as the comic book he was in.
Right, I think that character is supposed to be based on the Red Baron, you know, who was also called Rittmeister, and I forget the rest of his name, but yeah, the Red Baron, he was a young 20-something-year-old man from World War I who had 80, you know, victories in the air. So he was definitely an ace pilot, you know, until he was killed, of course. But yeah, I think that character is supposed to be based on the Red Baron, who was a real-life German Air Force, you know, pilot. So he was definitely, I think he's supposed to be based on him. So I'm not sure that we can really categorize all of these characters as heroes or villains. I think some of them are probably heroes and others are probably villains. So yeah, I actually thought that was quite interesting which ones they decided to pluck from history, or at least in the case of the Lord of Time. The other thing that I found interesting about this issue is, why the heck did he invent, you know, a brain-powered time machine that could initiate a program he cannot cancel?
It does seem sort of dumb on his part, doesn't it?
Yeah.
He can't control his own invention. Did it remind you of the whole Brother Eye thing from Infinite Crisis?
Yeah.
Yeah, because I thought this is like Batman losing control of his satellite. That's what this felt like. Ashford, how about you? Any you got some thoughts?
I just thought just the whole thing about with him saying the Justice League, they gotta lose to help the greater good. So I'm like, what's going on here? So what Diane was saying, this was all set up for part 2, so I'm ready to read part 2.
Yeah, most definitely. When I got to the end of this, I didn't even wait. Sometimes, you know, you put it down. And I just kept going. I was like, what happens? And I do like these time-displaced characters. They are entertaining. And I suppose you could call them perhaps anti-heroes, because I think Jonah Hex would definitely be morally ambiguous as well. You could sort of put that down. I don't know the other characters well enough to know.
Yeah, I think that Miss Liberty would at least be a heroic figure, or at least depending on which side of the Civil War she's on, because I don't think they really specify.
No, it's the Revolutionary War?
Oh, the Revolutionary War, yeah. So she's probably on the side of the heroes then. I thought it was the Civil War. But anyway, so yeah, I think that you've got, you know, an interesting mix there. You've got, you know, a Viking prince who probably has no clue what the heck's happening, so I don't think he's a villain. You've got Miss Liberty, who's fighting on the side of the Americans during the Revolution, so she's probably on the heroic side. You know, unless you're British, then she's probably on the side of the villain. So I guess that really depends on your point of view there. And then you've got, you know, Rittmeister von Hammer, who is, I'm pretty sure, is based on the Red Baron, who, if you're an American, he's definitely a villain. But if you're on the side of the Germans, he's probably a hero. And then, of course, you've got, you know, Jonah Hex, who is an anti-hero. I think he's the only established DC Universe character that's actually a part of that group. You know, everyone else is just kind of made up for the story, including the Black Pirate, whom I think is my favorite one.
Also, it's a treat. Like, oh, Jonah Hex pops up in this one. Like it seems like he always does that. Like if they go back in time and is at the right spot, bam, Jonah Hex. So this villain, I'm using air quotes in a podcast, he was like, you know what? I'll do this for the audience. I'm gonna pluck out Jonah Hex.
Well, that's everything I have. Ashford, you want to close us out?
Yes. So this was fun. You know, we're seeing the Huntress in a big blockbuster story. You know, we saw her handling things in South Gotham, and that was cool stuff. That was very grounded. And now we get to see our hero with in the big leagues, and not just kind of being in the corner and saying a quota of a line. She has agency. She's telling people where to get off. it's pretty fun. So I can't wait to read Justice League of America number 160. Write to us at thehuntress.podcast.com. We're also on Twitter at Huntress Podcast. You can catch us on Apple Podcast, formerly known as iTunes, but still called iTunes. Please give us a 5-star rating and write a review to trigger those algorithms so people can find us. And if you can do it just to be kind, that'd be awesome too. We do have a Patreon going, and I want to give thanks to those subscribers. Kay Say, thank you. Alan W. Wright, he is a Robin Hood enthusiast. He runs boldoutlaw.com. You can catch him on Twitter at boldoutlaw. We have Delvin Sims. He goes by DJ Merc. You can catch him on Twitch doing like live DJ sets sometimes. On some of the shows here at the Right On Network, he does the music. We have Tim Price. Thank you, Tim Price. He's now running the show The Outcasters. So check that out on Twitter. You can find him at The Outcasters. And Mark Ross, longtime supporter of Right On Network, this podcast, the Huntress Podcast. So yes, thank you, Mark Ross. And if you would like to be a patron of the show, please go to thehuntress.podcast.com, click the Patreon button. You can be like my friend Kevin Fedorkowski, where he just did a one-time Patreon donation of $25, or you can be an ongoing subscriber for $1 a month. And we're trying to get this go where when we have 20 Patreons, Diane, Laurel, and myself, we can do a commentary over one of the Justice League Unlimited cartoon stories where it features the Huntress, Helena Bertinelli. So until next time, guys, bye-bye. There we go.